This particular seminar that we're looking at today is about youth ministry, and we're going to be looking at some foundational materials for youth ministry. We're not going to get into specifics, but talk about just some very general, broad things that are true, whether you're working with a 7th grader or a senior in high school. So all the way 7th through 12th grade, we're going to be talking about some foundational things about who they are and how to work with them. So I want to start out by talking about 5 basic needs that all students have. This is true no matter where they're raised, in different states of the Union, different countries of the world. I believe this is true of all people everywhere, that there are 5 basic needs that we have, and it's during these times of adolescence that we have a great opportunity to help them understand these needs, to have these needs met, and for them to become well-rounded people because they have experienced having these 5 needs met. You can go to all sorts of resource books and read all sorts of different pieces of material, and you can get a long list of the needs of students. But I believe, boiling all of these things down together, I think there are 5 basic needs that all students have. The first one is the need to be loved. We look in the Scripture and we see different types of words that are used to tell us about different aspects and classifications of love. But what we're talking about here is the agape love. The love that says, I love you, exclamation point, end of sentence. It is an unconditional love where we're able to look at people and build a relationship with them, where we love them because of who they are. And every person needs this unconditional love in their life. A second need that they have beyond this fact of being loved is they need to have the fact of acceptance in their life. Now, to me, these go hand in hand. Love is an intangible. It's hard to describe. It's hard to know exactly what love is, but acceptance is a tangible. And as I accept someone for who they are, in other words, I'm giving a demonstration, a tangible connection here to the fact that I love them. And to me, love and acceptance are 2 sides of the same coin. Because I love you, then I accept you. Because I love you just like you are, then I accept you just like you are. And thus, we express in some kind of demonstrative way an acceptance to them to show them a demonstration of the love that is the motivator for that acceptance. And students are really looking for that unconditional love where people will accept them as they are. Now, that doesn't mean you have to like everything about them, everything they think, do, or say. No. Acceptance says, I accept you for who you are, period. I love you for who you are, period. And when we can begin to do that with authenticity, by the power of God in our lives, then we open up doors of ministry to these students in order to communicate to them the truths of the Scripture, to help them learn how to live life, to help them to learn how to deal with others in building relationships, because it all flows out of this, of being loved and being accepted. Which brings us to the third basic need that I think all students have, and that's the sense of belonging. See, love and acceptance is really kind of a personal thing. It's kind of one-on-one, but we live in a very social world. And so they also have a need to belong, to move beyond just the individual relationships to a group setting. And everybody wants to belong to something, a gang, a club, an organization, a unit, a friendship pool, something. There is that basic need that we all want to belong. I personally am a very introverted person, but even I want to belong. I want to know I have friends. I want to be able to relate to others. Not only my wife and my children, but to people that they know and they love and they enjoy being with. I want to belong to a team of people who work together. And so a sense of belonging is important to all of us. But when you come to those teenage years, the sense of belonging is so elevated because that, in so many cases, becomes their identifying factor. And as they find a sense of belonging, they find it easier to look into the mirror and say, I am a person of worth. And that gets us to that fourth need they have, the sense of value. In our society today, I like to liken it to paper plates and fine china when it comes to the sense of value. In our culture, in our society, in this day and age, most students are looked at like paper plates. They're here, they can be discarded. When I eat off a paper plate, I do not wash it, I throw it away. And we're in a discarded society right now where it's so easy. If I disagree with you, I don't like you, I don't need to be around you, I can discard you, I can throw you away. And our students need to know that they personally have value. They need to be fine china. I remember shortly after my wife and I were married, and we had one of our first parties where we had a formal dinner. We'd been given some china as a wedding gift, and we entertained some friends that night, and we ate off of the fine china. And being the loving husband that I was, I wanted to help my wife clean up and do dishes afterwards. So I took the fine china and I was headed for the dishwasher. I was quickly informed, you do not put fine china in a dishwasher. You take them and you hand wash them and you hand dry them, and then you treat them very carefully as you put them away. That's what students need. They need to know, no, you are not a paper plate that can easily be discarded or thrown away. You are fine china. You are a person of value, and I want to take care of you. I want to protect that value that's in you. You are important to me, and therefore I will treat you individually, personally, and help you through the process of growing up. And students really need that today. They need to be loved. They need to be accepted. They need to be have a sense of belonging where they are part of a social group of some kind, and they need to have value, that they know that they have worth in the world in which they live, that they can add value to others because they are a person of value. And that brings us to the last basic need of students, the sense of competency. The fact that they are gifted and they can do something that adds value to others, that they can be competent in some area or many areas of life. The problem with our culture in this day and age is so often everything else we've talked about, love, acceptance, a sense of belonging and value, only comes if we can prove ourselves to be competent in a certain area. I believe that's the wrong approach to take. I believe as we begin to love on students and accept students, as we begin to show them that they do belong and that they have value, then it's very natural for them to have the competence to come out of their lives, which we can congratulate them for, that we can say, good job, you've done well. But what I want to help our students to understand is that I don't love them and accept them because they have competence. I love them and accept them and all of this because of who they are. And by the way, you're good at some stuff as well. And that will help them to know that they are important because they're humans, because they're people, because they are gifts of God that then have also been gifted by God in order to do things that are helpful and they can add value to other people. So I believe these are 5 basic needs that everybody has. My parents had them when they were growing up. I had them when I was growing up. My children have those basic needs. My grandchildren today have those basic needs. And by the way, we carry those needs through all of life with us. I still want to be loved. I still want to be accepted. I still want to belong to a group, and so on and so forth. But during those years of adolescence, when they're questioning everything, that's when we really need to help build the realities into their life. These needs need to be met in their lives so that they can move on into be adolescents that are serving well and living well and confident about who they are, and thus they'll move from adolescence on into adulthood and will continue to be good quality people. Now, with those basic needs having been addressed, let me give you just a few tricks of the trade for working with students. The first one is what we've really been talking about in all of these basic needs, is we just need to love students unconditionally. And we don't always like what they do, how they talk. That's not always the case. But it's not a matter of whether we love them, and we just need to love them unconditionally. A second trick of the trade, so to speak, that is very important is never embarrass a student in public. Now, I've seen a lot of students get embarrassed in public. I have embarrassed students in public before. It sometimes happens, but we need to guard against that. And when it does happen, and occasionally it will happen, we'll see that comes out wrong. I mean, we didn't know it would embarrass anyone, but it does. What I always do in that situation is I immediately go to that person, seek forgiveness from them, try to make it right with them, and then if I'm able to get that group together again, even that I embarrass them publicly in, I want to express to that group my apologies for having embarrassed them. In other words, what we need to do is just have them foremost in our mind at that point, that we're helping them and we're cautious in how we're treating them and we're trying to them. And if we do, we need to make it. A third thing that is very, very important now is to abide by the two-adult rule. Always have two adults working together anytime you have a group of students together. Now, there will be times that is absolutely, totally impossible to have two adults in a room with a group of students. In that particular case, the door should always be open in that classroom that you're teaching in. Especially if it's a solid door, that door needs to be open so that people, as they walk down the hall and go by the way, they can look into the room and see that everything is appropriate. If there's a glass panel in the door and there is outside noise, then naturally you can close the door because there is vision into the room through the glass in the door. But if there's no glass in the door, even if there's noise outside, make sure that door is at least partially open, if not fully open, and so that people can see that everything is okay in that room at that time. But the basic rule of thumb is always to have two adults in the room, safeguarding one another, protecting those students, making sure that everything is okay and everything is being done appropriately and the way it is supposed to be done. Another thing that you need to make sure that you do along the way is maintain confidentiality. Now, by that I don't mean that you're never to say to a student as they come to you and say, I have something I want to share with you and you've got to promise me you'll never tell anybody about this. When a student comes to me and begins to make those kind of appeals to me, I will say to them, I can't make that carte blanche statement to you because I do not know what you're about to share with me. But if it is something that is all right for me to maintain a confidence about, I will do that. But I leave that door open until I hear what they're trying to share with me. Because there are some issues that students will bring to you that you may be required to tell somebody else for their safety, for their well-being. And so you don't want to make those kind of promises that you cannot follow through on. But when a student comes to me and say, hey, I've got a confidential prayer request I want to share with you. Or I've got this question and I'm not quite sure how to my boyfriend or my girlfriend. Or I'm not quite sure how to do this or how to do that, and it is of a nature that there's nothing wrong with keeping that confidence. If a student asks you, hey, do not share this with anyone else, it kind of goes back to that don't embarrass them in public. Well, don't embarrass them privately either. It's very devastating in the relationship building of an adult youth worker to students if they've told you a private prayer request and the next thing they know, 3 adults come up to the church and talk to them and say, "I've answered your prayer about this yet." That will destroy the relationship that you're having with students. So maintain confidentiality whenever it is appropriate and safe to do, but make sure that you do not lock yourself into promising something that would be inappropriate or even harmful for you to do. But be cautious in that area. Another thing that is very important in general basics of working with students is involve them in the process of learning. Students, especially in this day and age, do not want to be told everything. They love to discover. They love to do part of the discovery process. So incorporate that into their lifestyle, into that process of teaching, into that process of working with them. Bring them in on the brainstorming team. Bring them in on the planning team. Bring them in on the teaching team. Find those areas where they have some competence, where they're able to do some things. Give them opportunities to serve in ways that are win-win situations where they really can add to the process, and that strokes them, that makes them feel good. They take ownership into the whole process, and it just strengthens the relationship between you, the youth leader, you, the youth teacher, and the students, because they're involved in that. And what I've discovered, as they begin to take ownership into it, they become more excited about it. They begin to sell the concepts to others. They begin to talk about it. They begin to invite their friends. And they want to be involved in that process. Another thing that I've discovered is, sometimes God gives them a whole lot better than me, because they culture the lifestyle they're in, and they see nuances and entry points and things that I would never see. So I really like to bring them into the discovery process, the teaching process, the implementation process, and the evaluation process. It helps them, they enjoy it, and again, I always try to put them in a win-win situation. Some students will tell you they don't want to be involved in that. Fine. Let them be comfortable where they are, but at least keep inviting and giving them opportunity, because sometimes they're just in the process of trying to develop the ability to believe in themselves, to have the confidence that they can add to a process. And so this is all part of the teaching, mentoring process. And the last thing I want to share with you on tricks of the trade is be yourself. You can take one look at me, and I don't look like the stereotypical youth worker. If I were to walk onto a campus today, the students would look at me. They would not say, "Gee, I wonder if that's a new student on our campus." They'd immediately look at me and say, "He's either part of the administration or he's a narc agent. He doesn't belong on our campus as a student." They know I am not one of them. But I'm going to go on there on that campus, in that teaching environment, on that mission project, whatever we're doing, and I'm just going to be myself. I'm not going to try to be their best buddy. I'm going to be the adult. I'm going to be me. I'm going to live through the skin that God has given me, through the personality that He has put in me, through the spiritual gifts He has given me, and I'm just going to be myself. I'm going to befriend them, I'm going to help them, I'm going to love on them, I'm going to do whatever I can do to help them, but I'm going to do it according to who God has created me to be, and I'm not going to try to be something I'm not. And so those are my encouragements to you, that if you'll take these few simple things and begin to incorporate those into youth ministry, I think you'll find yourself having a lot of fun and enjoying working with students, and they will enjoy being with you and being led by you. So thank you very much.